Hey friends, welcome to the Origami BMW tutorial. This is Boice's multiple wheels, and as you can see, it is an origami car with color change wheels and quite a smooth finish on top. Windows, mirrors, all the sorts. But yeah, this model is not easy to fold, and if you're to compare it to some of my other tutorials, it is actually harder than the Samurai. However, it takes a lot less time to shape. Now, why is it so hard, you might ask? And that is because you might notice there's no grid lines going through the windows or the hood of the car or anything like that, as you can see here, and that makes it very difficult when you're actually folding it. However, I have made it a lot easier on y'all. So you can see here we have pre-crease diagrams, and as these box plate tutorials go, yes, you need to finish the pre-creasing before you start to this tutorial, and I have broken down all the steps to fold the grid and the pre-crease lines without going through the windows. So definitely check that out. It's in the link in the description to get those diagrams. So get those diagrams, pre-crease it, and then come back here when you're ready. All right, so you might notice that this model is starting off partially folded right here. And I did this to kind of show you where we are going to go with this first part of the tutorial. And that is basically a lot of level shifter work. So pay attention here, how clean these panels are that we have defined. And we want to keep them as clean as possible. We really don't want lines going through them. So be very careful. And I also thought it might have been helpful for me to unfold this so that you can kind of see how it goes as well. This is a much more complex tutorial, so I am going to go, not fast, but I'm definitely not going to go slow enough for everyone to fold this. You're going to have to be ready. You're going to have to know a little bit about crease patterns in order to go for this. So if you haven't done level shifters before, definitely check out my tutorials on those before you start. Yeah, let's unfold it, and hopefully it helps some of you all a little bit. One thing is, even from the crease pattern, it is hard to know which order to do some of these folds, which is why the tutorial will be very helpful to understand the sequence in which to fold this a little bit easier. There's also a lot of locked layers that are used. So as you can see, I can't exactly just pull this apart. I would rip out the paper. There we go, and we just got one more level shifter here. There we go. And here we have our paper ready to go. Now, you have pre-creased your BMW, and something that you might notice is the edges right here, right? We need these to be in the right orientation, mountain valley fold. So I think these might be correct, but you might have to invert some of these creases. So I'm going to go over it very quickly for you. But this inner crease right here, these are going to be mountains, right? And then we hit the first set of level shifters. And then after the second round of level shifters, there's this line right here, which is going to be more mountain folds. So let me rotate it this way for you guys, and you guys can see. And I believe this crease line, you're going to have to invert that for yourself, as with normal level shifters. So go ahead and do that. Do it on the other side too. This is also mountain, right? And then I think that should be all, except maybe the middle of these diamonds, right? Right here, these might be valley for you, so turn them into mountain as well, if they aren't already. Between all the diamonds, they're going to be all mountain folds. So make sure to do that before we start collapsing. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go from the bottom and start with these bottom level shifters first. And so I know it might be hard to see the creases here, but it is right here. This is our first one, and then right here is our second one. And so before we even do that, let's pleat these horizontal lines, and hopefully these will be in the correct accordion if you followed the pre-creasing. Just like this, right? And then now we're going to concern ourselves with the ones right here. So let me angle it for you. I'm going to be angling this a lot, so try to keep orientation. This is going to be the front of the car, and then back here is going to be the end of the car, back of the car. All right. So this one isn't quite like, you know, a normal level shifter. The top two creases are going to be mountain, and then the bottom two of the diamond are actually valley. And so to get that to work, you need to have these vertical lines go all the way up, right? So the two mountain ones go up like this, and you can kind of see, since I already had it folded, that it's already coming together. But basically, if I hold these bottom creases together, you can see how it's arranging the top like this, right? And this is why we need to crease through here, right? I'm just gonna crease through the rest of it. So we have this kind of structure going on. Now, how do the bottom ones become valley, you might ask? And that is because we're going to push in like this to change the axis of our creases, right? So they were out like this, and then now we're pushing them in so that it can almost fold onto itself like this, right? So then it would be something like here. Although we're going to use the valley fold that runs next to these two mountain folds like that. And then in here, since it's shifted, right, it's going to be two grid lines this way. And it'll lay flat like that, right? Now we're going to do on the other side, same thing. And you can use the crease pattern to your advantage here to really understand where these creases are supposed to align, because it is a little bit strange at first. The other helpful thing is, remember, I use these mountains here to basically orientate it correctly, and then it kind of just folds itself for me. Even though if it wasn't already creased as well as mine already is, it would be a lot easier if you do it like that. And yeah, the tricky thing is, like right now in the orientation, it's locked in like that. So, you know, it's a little bit of a finicky move. Now this next level shifter, this is a lot easier. All of them are mountain folds, right, in this diamond, right? So we'll start with this right one, which you can't see all of it. But open up this flap, right? See where your diamond is. You just kind of sink it like you would any kind of like dragon claw or something, right? And then you just close it like this. Valley, or finish the mountain fold. And then the valley that's between this, you want to make sure the layers are laying like so for now. And then allow the valley to fold back like this. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side. And you can notice how much I'm closing the model along this orientation just to set it down first. basically, before I can complete the level shifter. You're going to have to do that. So hopefully that makes sense, and if that doesn't make sense to you, then study up on these parts a little bit more before trying. Alright, so now that we have these two, we're going to complete the shift in the back so that it can lay flat in the back. So I'm going to rotate it this way. Right, so this is now the front of the car, this is the back of the car. And we have actually, let's do the same thing that we did before. Right, I know there's a level shifter here, but we're going to ignore that for now. And it's basically the same shifter as the very first ones we did, where the top ones are mountain and the bottom ones are valley. Just like this. Push it in. Same thing on the other side. It helps to have your horizontal and vertical lines like well creased to do this. Because ultimately it's going to depend mostly on those. There we go, that's our first set. And then before we do the second set, actually, let's do the spoiler here. So that's this one right here. And this will help us notice where the back of the car is, basically. And these lines right here, on yours, they might be valley on the bottom and then mountain on the top one. You're going to make sure it's inverted, right? So check the crease pattern. This is the back of the car edge, right? It should be mountain, then valley. So make sure that's correct. And then it is just a regular level shift, right? All mountains, like that. The tricky part about this one is that since we already have a pleats going along, you kind of have to push it in a little bit. It's not going to be as easy, but it's definitely not hard or anything. Just got to open up the layers a little bit so that it fits in like that. There you go. Now let's do this next one right here. This is also just a regular level shift. It's right there. Just open it up, get that pleat, grab the mountain, fold right there, push in the top like a sink fold. And then valley fold, back down. Just like that. Same thing on the other side. Open up a little bit. Fold the horizontal pleat on both sides of the shifter. Push the shifter down, fold in the layer, recollapse the valley fold, lay flat. Now, there's a very specific reason why we want the pleats on the sides that they are. We'll go into more detail later on why exactly and how these will go, because there's some tricky stuff in the middle here that lets us do what we want to do. But for now, just let them face that direction. Okay, next up, we have another shifter right here, right? Same exact thing. And on the other side too. just like this. And then the flap that's left, it doesn't really matter where it sits for now. Just kind of fold it some direction and we'll handle it. We'll handle it later. All right, so now you might notice we have two more pairs of shifters. Here's one here and then one up here. And you might be asking, all right, Boice, how do we do these? Because we didn't fold all the way through since we have the body panel right here. And you might notice, if you look carefully, that on our pre-creasing, right, we only creased through the level shifter, but I actually extended the crease a little bit further down, but I only did that when I did the level shifter. And, you know, as you can see, like, this one's not as far down, and it's not perfectly straight down either, so it really doesn't matter where the crease goes. It just kind of helps us to get that level shifter in, right? But we're not even going to really use this later, so just put it somewhere, you know, try to make it perpendicular like a horizontal line, but then fold in that level shifter, right? And then just get it far enough, and it's not going to lay flat, right? You see how bubbled it is? So get it far enough so that we can fold back along this valley line where it will lock in our shifter. Like that. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Right, so they collapse the same, they just don't go all the way through the model. And this is one of the parts that makes it a little bit hard, because you can see the paper's not flat. So you're just going to have to live with it not being flat. Right, so you can see how 3D it is here, and you really want to protect this section. So whatever needs to happen for it to not crease through, try your best. All right, we have one more that's right here, and it's the same thing. Right, there's one side, but not fully yet because I'm going to do the other side too before I let it lay flat. And there we have it. And those are the shifters for the main part of the body. Now the goal is going to be fixing in these side pleats so that we can get the rest of the model to lay flat without risk to these panels. And so that part's a little bit tricky, but that's the next step because we don't want to live with these panels being all in jeopardy like this. Alright, we flipped the model so that the front of the car is facing us, and I am going to quickly go over the flap arrangements that's correct before we start doing these pleats, in which we're going to change the flap arrangements again. I've completed it already on the left side, and then I will show it on the right side so that you can convert yours if necessary. So pay a lot of attention right here. Again, this is the front of the car facing us. We're going to start very first, level shifter. The flap here points down. The one right on top of that points up. The next one, which is the first shifter that doesn't go all the way through, points down. Then the second shifter that doesn't go all the way through points up. And then the next shifter points up. The one after that points down. And then this last one, I'll say, this last one points up. We don't have to worry about this. This is just a spoiler. But make sure you have that correct. And the reason for this is so that on our model, right? So like say right here we have the windshield. It gives us this open flap here that we're going to be using to fill out the frame. And if it's not laid out correctly like this, it won't open up like you see it doing here. So very important. And let's do that on the other side. Right? So we're gonna start from the very bottom. And this first one needs to be changed, right? So the first one faces down. The second one faces up. And if you're confused by this, you can check the crease pattern and just look in this area to see which way they're supposed to go. Right? It faces up. And then the first one that doesn't go all the way through needs to face down. Right, so oftentimes I just crease a little bit past this valley fold so that, right, we can check that it lays down. And we have this open flap here. Right, that's basically all we want. Then the one after that faces up. Right, so this is the second one that doesn't go all the way through, faces up. The one after that, this one also faces up, so this one's okay. And then the second to last one needs to face down, so let's fix this. And then the last one here, it's already facing up, so we're all good there. And then we can kind of flatten this area so you see that all of them match up together. And we're good to go. All right. And one last thing we need to do is actually we need to fit one more pleat in at the front of the car. So our first level shifter right here. I know this might be kind of upsetting, but you're going to unfold it a little bit. Just this first one, if you can. All right, so just unfold it a little bit. And then there's one more pleat right here. So let me show. That runs across, right, even to the other side. So let's undo the other one too. Again, just the first level shifter. Like this, right? This pleat should be pre-creased for y'all, but you're going to want to do a mountain and then a valley, which the valley will be the one, the very bottom one to the front of the car, like this. So fold the full pleat all the way through. Just like that. And then just recollapse the first level shifter. Because we had done it before, right? It should just pretty much automatically go back together. On both sides. Just like that. And of course, just make sure that the pleats are lining up the same way, right? So now, we should have 2 pleats at the very beginning stacked on top of each other, facing downwards, right? Just like that. All right. And now for the hard part. Awesome. So we're going to be working on this side of the car, which it's actually going to be easier if we flip our paper to the back. So it looks like this. And let's work on this side first, right? And I think I'll show this on both sides just because it's kind of difficult. So here's the front of the car. Here's the back of the car. We have a mountain fold here, and then for this next pleat, we have a valley. So let's fold this valley first and make sure that, right, the crease lines that don't go all the way through, just be careful because it's going to make it a little bit more difficult to fold this valley fold. So it might be a little bit finicky. All right, so get the normal ones first. And then just make sure that, right, the creases that don't go all the way through are okay. Right, and then actually let's pleat one more time back this way. Right, so the next valley fold, which is right here. So again and again, it's a little bit difficult. You're gonna have to fidget with it a little bit so that the creases that don't go all the way through still line up along creases for the pleats, like that. Right, so I'm being very careful that none of this creases. You can see it's a little bit bent, but that's okay. We're going to try to put the least amount of pressure possible on it. All right, and then we're going to, so you can see that we just formed this new pleat right here. And what we're interested in is the inside of this pleat. So I'm going to try to hold the model like this, right? And then I want you to focus on this pleat, which I will call the first pleat that doesn't go all the way through. Right in the middle here, we're actually going to basically unfold this pleat just a little bit. I'm going to grab the pleat here and create, you can see it forming, right, a valley fold that goes 45 degrees across. And basically I'm moving the pleat to a different side, right? So now instead of being this way, instead of facing up, it's now facing down. And the way it's doing that is it's folding a diagonal between this pleat here, right? So between this pleat, and oftentimes in this corner, it's going to get stuck a bit. So you're going to have to fidget with it because the only way it will fully close is if you complete and pull the flap like pretty much as far as you can. Mine's not perfect. There's a little bit of gap, but that's okay because it's not seen. Right? We basically made like a little swivel, and it's almost like an Elias stretch through the middle of pleats, right? But just one layer to make it from going up, facing up, to face down. So try to get that. It's a little bit fidgety. And then we're going to do the same thing on the second pleat that doesn't go all the way through. Except this time, and if you're curious how I'm holding the model, I'm like very gently holding it like this. This time with the second pleat that doesn't run all the way through, we are going to fold the pleat up, right? So using this corner as reference, up, and you can see right here it completes the pleat going up, and then I can push it down, and now our pleat has shifted from pointing down to pointing up. right? So now we have, there's basically a new valley, or a new mountain fold in this case, forming when we did that. So just pinch it in a little bit to reinforce the crease, at least for one grid line, because we're going to be doing this again. And the goal is basically that to move these pleats that don't go all the way through, we're going to transition them down and then up to the point where they won't touch this anymore. And when we're done, you'll see what I mean. But for now, right, we have another valley fold. So we're going to fold the pleats, like the next valley fold. I'm pretty sure you can see it, right? Right here. One more unit. We're going to valley fold this way. And since the ends are a lot easier to do than the middle, I like to do the ends to make sure make sure I know where I am. And then in this area where it's kind of all weird and stuff, I do that. And then we can see our new, basically what we did now, our pleats, like we're, you might be wondering, all right, I shifted that pleat, where is it now? So right now, since this is the other side of it, this is what remains, right? And then on the other side, it's actually sitting on top of this pleat right here. So it's right underneath. I can open up to see right there, right? And we're basically going to do the same thing, but on this side, right? So you can see now we have like a slightly open pleat right here and right here. So this time let's do this is the second crease that doesn't go all the way through. Let's do this one first because it's a little easier to see. Right, so we have this pleat here. We're going to open it up a little bit, and I'm going to grab this part here. And right now it's facing down, but I want it to face up. So you can see the crease starting. I want it to face up and go all the way as far as I can while recollapsing the pleats to swivel the layer. And just like that, we're moving. And then there's another residual crease here that you can just pinch a little bit to lock it in. A little bit. I just kind of push flat with my thumb and it creases enough, but not all the way through. And then we're going to do this same thing on this bottom side, but this one's a little bit more difficult because again, we have two layers this time, right? So one that goes all the way through and then one that doesn't, right? That's right here. And we have our partial pleat right here. And you want to grab both at the same time and start doing the same thing, right? You can see I started right here. And it can be hard to keep these together sometimes. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll do the bottom one first as far as I can. Or I guess right now they're just coming together. So if they go together, just let them come together to the other side, right? So now I completed the pleat like that, and we have our swivel right here. And then again, just kind of let it crease down so we have this last layer right there. And I think we only need to do this one more time. So again, we're going to valley fold along the next line here. Right? And then this time we can start with the first pleat that's not fully touching yet, which this one happens to be behind that layer, right? It's behind the layer. Let's see, there's now a lot stacked on top of each other. Right, yeah. So we can see now there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there's 4 layers all right here, and we're going to do them all at the same time. So right at this joint, right here, right? Here's our partial pleat. I'm going to start it while recollapsing the pleat. And then now you want to check the other side very carefully because it should be able to lie flat now. It should be far enough where this crease will go flat. Right here. But before we let the whole thing go flat, let's finish off the top side, or the second one that doesn't reach all the way through. And then very similarly, right? There's 2 layers. So we're going to, instead of 4, so this one's a little bit easier, right? And then here's our partial pleat. It's facing down, so let's make it face up. Right? And complete our pleat. Like that. And then you can see, right, here's the spot that we wanted to keep clean. It's looking pretty clean. Let's flip it over just to make sure. There you go. So this part now lays flat. Just like that. And we just need to do the same thing on the other side. So let's try that one. I'm going to show it again on the other side so you can get the process. I'm not really going to explain it all like I did for the first side. But hopefully maybe if you see it again, then it makes sense if it didn't make sense the first time. Or if you're just working on the other side, just to get it done. All right, so let's flip this over. And rotate it this way, right? And then remember, our first step here was to just do a pleat, just valley fold. And then we're going to valley fold along the next pleat. And then we're going to start doing our swivels. So let's start from the back. It's right here. So this one we're making it go down. Right now it's facing up. And then I'm trying to get as far as possible to make it an actual pleat, and then complete a partial pleat like this. There's one. Let's do the other side now too. And you can see actually, since I don't have to really show this as much, I am like using both sides of the paper to kind of help myself fold this. Alright, let's do another pleat. And valley fold this way. And then do the same thing. As you can see, this side is not as clean as this side. But that's kind of okay, because the last pleat should fix like most of the impreciseness in between. Alright, valley fold back this way. And then this is our last one. So this time on the part that faces the front of the car, it's 4 layers all the way through. And on the other side, it's 2 layers. All right. And it is always so satisfying to get to this part of the model because it lays flat after it not laying flat for a while. And it's kind of satisfying in its own way, especially when you look between the layers that we have, the pleats here, and you're like, man, those look very strange. And this part is also very difficult to interpret from solving the crease pattern, because the order in which you do them matters a lot, especially to not crease through the parts here. Now, if it was a regular grid, I wouldn't be so hard, but it doesn't look as nice, obviously, as this. So great job making it through this part. I guess an explanation, which we're not fully done with that kind of procedure where we're shifting the layers, but it lies flat now. And the reason why we shift these layers is actually to create enough space for the wheels and the correct orientation for the wheels. So this one's almost done, but basically these groups of flaps that are all bound together will turn into the wheels on the bottom since they have to color change. And the only way that's possible is we're taking all the pleats from these level shifters and spreading them out evenly to get where the wheels are. And I think that's kind of neat thing about this design. It makes use of the pleats very well, actually, for this. And so even though this might not be, you know, mathematically optimized, I think it's still quite efficient. All right, so we don't have too much left for the wheels spot, basically. And we can just use our existing pre-creases to do this, which again is very helpful with the pre-crease diagrams. So same kind of swivel maneuver, right? So let's work on this side first. But this time we can do the pleat pretty normally. I guess we can still flip it to the other side, right? Since it's this way. So let's valley fold right here. Because basically all these pleats that we pre-creased will become pleated at some point. Alright, so there's one. And then we'll valley fold back. And that should be all we need for now. Alright, let's flip it over. And yeah, all these pleats here will eventually become the windows. So that's great. Alright, so let's do the front first. And we're only going to, even though there's 4 layers here, we're splitting them up. So we're just going to manipulate 2 layers. So we're going to grab the top 2 layers, and then we're going to do the same swivel thing. I don't even really know what this thing is called. Right, transition, some kind of transition. So, and then refold the pleats. Just like that. And then we can lock it in by folding down like that. And now you can see that our pleat arrangement, there's 2 facing, I guess, right, and then 2 facing left. And that's prime location for our wheel, number 1. And then on this side, this one's just a little bit different. So the side towards the back of the car. And that's because we just need to move one flap here. Since there's 1 on this side already and then 3 on the other, we just need to move the top layer here to even out. And we're going to try to get it a little bit higher than the rest of these pleats. So you see, like in theory, you could go as high as you want, but we're just going to go right about here. Yeah, it doesn't really matter, as long as it's not too low, right? But in theory, I think before I've done it where it's all the way at the top. But I guess it honestly doesn't matter too much. Just like that. Refold the pleats. Now we have this kind of arrangement, right? You see 2 and 2. Do that same thing on the opposite side. Let's refold our pleats, or one more pleat. Back around. All right, and then same thing. So over here, we need 2 pleats. There we go. And then on the other side, we just need one. Sweet. There you go. And then the final part to this step is to collapse the rest of the pleats up until the bottom right here, which you can see that would just be like two full pleats basically. So back and forth, if you count those as two. So, right, maybe we can just do it on this side. I'll show it like this, right? So you just pleat here till the end, forward and backwards. And then one more time. Forward and backwards. Just like that. And same thing on the other side, of course. And one more. Mountain Valley. There you go, and it's really coming together. There you go, and I know the pleats, they might be a little bit, elasticy, so they're like not staying fully. That's totally fine, because we don't really need to worry about that right now. But yeah, that part is done, and then next we'll finish off. Basically, maybe we'll do the wheels next, and then we'll do the front of the car, and the back's pretty much already done. And then we'll do the windows, which the windows are a little bit tricky. They're not very difficult. It's just it's a little bit small, right, to create the frames, and it's some close sinks involved, some spread sinks and close sinks. But yeah, we're really getting there. So we made it through the hard part, and we are on our way to success. All right, so let's get started with the wheels actually, because the way to start these is pretty simple. You see we have these pleats on the edge, right? So we can just start by folding through those pleats, through all our other pleats. There's a lot of pleats, box pleating, of course. But we can fold through these the entire way, and this will make our flap orientation. All right. Like this. And last one on top. There you go. All right, and then from here, right, you can notice I didn't crease them very much, and it's because we're actually going to do an Elias stretch. And so we need to add just one new crease, and that's a mountain fold from the middle of these two flaps, right, to the corner. Right, but it's just an Elias stretch, so we can open it up a little bit to fold that crease. right, like that. And a lie stretch, which means open up that flap. And we should actually have some pre-crease lines that run up to the top. And then right around here, right, where our pleats are supposed to lay down, it just makes another crease through some of the layers as a hinge, like that. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side, right? So get that first crease. Doesn't have to be too pretty because we're actually not going to use it since we're flipping it inside out. But at least for the tutorial sake, I want to try and make it clean. Right, like that. And then just a lie stretch up along our existing pre-creases, like this. And you're going to do that for the other 3 wheels. So I'll go a little bit faster. Let's do this one. And other side. Yeah, I was wondering if I should put in the pre-crease steps or not, and I think I chose not to because honestly, you don't really need to pre-crease it. But outside of the other ones that were included, there's a nice sequence for these wheels, right? And no one ever complained about an lie stretch. They're pretty fun to do. Just get a little bit of ASMR going as I finish these last 2 wheels. And the very last lie stretch right here. And we did that pretty precise, pretty clean. I do like to keep things clean. Just like that. And now we have, right, like 4 extra flaps here for the wheels. And we got the rest of the pleats collapsed. Right, so now we just have to actually fold the wheels. And I'll show you how to do that. Alright, friends, we are back. And as you can see, I did 1 wheel so that I could remember how to fold it. And we are back on the other lens so that it's a little bit easier to see since these wheels get small. They're not too difficult. So yeah, hopefully it makes sense. And then we're doing it 4 times, so should be okay. So I'm going to start with this wheel, right? And we have it currently in a flap. And the first step is actually this very last unit on top. We're going to outside reverse fold. And that's just going to start the color change, right? I know outside reverse folds, they're like, you know, kind of risky, but instead of doing that, just literally unfold the Elias stretch a little bit so that you can invert the point. So, all right, then you don't risk tearing it. But even if you do tear the tip a little bit, it's not really going to show. So it's all good. So basically we get to here, right? This is halfway through our outside reverse fold. Find the grid line. And actually, what's nice is during our pre-creasing, we actually pre-creased a line right here, which you can't really see, but once we fold in, you might be able to see on your fold. So let's get the focus. Right, there it is. You see that? And same thing on the other side. And it basically looks like this from this side. And we haven't done anything here yet. Right, but that's what you want. And then from here, we're basically just going to complete, you know, the remaining transition, which it's going to change a little bit later. So right now it's folded on top, but what I'm going to do is actually fold this pleat down and then turn this into a mountain fold. Right, and this is just an existing crease from before. So right there, and then that will lay flat. Same thing on the other side. It's kind of like that, and I'm being kind of careful because, you know, if you make the wheels a little off, then they won't look so good. So you want to try to make them all the same. But there we go. Now we have this, right? So you can kind of start to see the shape, but now we need to color change it. And the way to do that is, you see here, right? This is like the grid line where the edge is, right? And then we go down one more, and there's this first one right here. We're going to want to fold in half here. So we're going to want to fold this flap as a half unit, which you can line up basically this crease to the edge here. So let me try to show this where I'm folding, right? About there, it's lined up. And on the other side is also lined up. There you go. It's right about there, and then you want to crease relatively sharp so that it stays. And basically, it's a half grid unit outside of the edge, right? Alright, so now we're going to make the wheels from this shape into this shape, and it's not too difficult. Basically, we're going to make inside reverse fold from this corner, and then our reference is the grid line here. And if it continues, it's actually running along another half unit here. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky, but when we start it, right, just fold the grid line first. Get that squared away. So from the corner to the corner of the grid line. And then once you have that in place, then the half unit really isn't too hard to do, right? There you go, like that, and I'm pitching it in place so that when I look on the inside to do the inside reverse fold, it makes sense. And now to actually complete the reverse fold, let me show from this side, it's a little bit easier to see. Basically, you can take the corner right here and bring it up to the top corner here. So just like that. And then that basically completes the guide for your reverse fold, and it'll be nice and clean. You know, I guess it's, you know, it's a small detail to keep it clean. But yeah, there's that on one side, and then I'll show on the other side here. Right, grid line crease, and then the half unit. And then on the inside, keep it clean, complete that reverse fold. There you go. And basically you just don't want that extra blue part here to be showing, so you can have a clean color change. So if yours is just slightly off a little bit, just make sure it's not showing, and then you'll be good to go. Just like that. All right, and the last thing we're going to do, actually, which we didn't do on this side yet, is oh, just kidding, we have one more step before that. So you can notice on this wheel, right, the corner here is tucked in, right? So this is part of it not showing. So we have this little part that's sticking out. Now that the reverse fold is in place, we're actually just going to swivel it in, and that's going to help us for our next step. All right, so the same thing on the other side. We have the little blue corner here. Just swivel it in like that. And that is because we're going to round out these corners, and it's basically like about half. You can kind of think about it, right? To round it out. So you can kind of just do something like this. And then same thing on the other side. If I can get it. Right. And now we are very close. We're almost there. Our wheel is now just missing a little bit on top, if you look at it from like a roundness perspective. And the way we do that is we're actually going to use this part a little bit. So I guess when I said it was going to be hidden, I forgot about this part. But the way to do this is you're going to fold basically like right around where this point is. Hold on, it's a swivel fold. So if you reach in the back and start pulling at this flap, you can see that it frees a little bit the area that we just folded. Opens up like this, right? And then we're going to collapse it a little bit, or basically just use that as our anchor point to swivel upwards like that. And I know it's kind of hard to show because it's small, but I'll show it again on the other wheel. But like it's not too much of an ordeal. You kind of just flip that back flap over the top, and it adds half a unit to the top to balance out the shape. So let me just get mine even. Like that. And there is our wheel. All right, so let's do the same thing on this side. So let's fold the corners in. So the mountain fold. About halfway. You can go a little bit more if you want. And if you go a little bit more, I think it makes your wheel taller. So that's how you can kind of play around with the shape. Alright, so something like that. You just kind of want to match it on both sides. Right. And then from there, you're going to reach in the back, take out this flap, fold it down along the joint that we created. And voila, there's our wheel. It's like that. And actually, so you can notice that this wheel is a little bit taller than this wheel. And that's because I didn't fold the corners in quite enough. So if you want to change, right? So this is actually a good example. If you accidentally mess up a little bit, to change it, all you really got to do is fold in this corner a little bit more. So it's going to go a little bit more past a half. I don't want to say it's like, you know, 2/3 or anything, but it's basically 2/3. Just don't overthink it. So on both sides here. There we go. And then we're going to swivel the inner flap up. Like that. And then that makes our wheels nice and round. So let's show that off really quick. All right, we got wheels on both sides now. And we just got to do it on the other side of the car. And so I won't show this to save time, but go ahead and do the same thing on the third and fourth wheel slot, and we'll come back when we're done. All right, so we have done all 4 wheels now. And you can see we're getting there. Using these clips to hold down the model so it stays in frame. But yeah, we're really getting there. The last, or not the last, but like the main structural thing to collapse now is this front part here. And so just for starters, right, yours is going to be like this. I already have the crease enabled. But on your model, you might, actually, I think this would be pre-creased as a mountain fold. You're going to want to invert that into a valley fold, and it's going to be, you know, the top crease before this nice uncreased section here. So turn that into a valley fold. Right, I already done it on mine. And then since there's a lot of layers here, you want to be careful, right? So I can put pressure on all these pleats, but don't over crease the center area too much. Later on, it's going to turn into part of the front bumper and stuff like that. But yeah, and then once you have that as a valley fold, right, basically you're going to count from the edge 3 grid units, and this will be a mountain. So a mountain here and a valley here. So then you kind of get this pattern going on. And so again, just crease those, not too much. You don't want to wear out the paper too much, but we are going to start from here. And it's okay if it doesn't lay flat. Mine's not flat like that. All right, friends, so we are back in the zoomed out view because I think it'll actually be better to see. And we're going to start on the front of the car. And this will pretty much finish at least this part of the collapse. And then after that, we just have like this detailed area for the frames. But let's get into it. So if you haven't already, and your model is like this, you want to make sure that this crease right here, which if you pre-creased it, it might be mountain, but you want to make it a valley, right? This is the closest one to this clean area. And then you can fold it up like this, right? And then you want to make sure that after 4 units, you can fold down that it would be a mountain basically on this side. And so just make sure that is creased in, and it'll just make things easier, right? But we're going to start with it unfolded, and let's actually start with this left side. So if you remember from our pre-creasing, if you unfold these pleats a little bit, we should find like an Elias stretch basically right at this point. And let's start collapsing the corner because this will be easier to see once we get in. So along my pre-crease, which goes up to here, which you might not be able to see now, but it goes up, I think, 4 grid units, like this, right? About there, and then the last one is over here. We have that started, and let's actually do that on the other side as well, because we're going to need to do both at the same time, at least just for this part. So let's get it started on this side, and you can notice that I'm folding through the layers on the very far edges, and that is intentional. I guess it doesn't quite make a difference, but for me it feels like part of the sequence just to keep it collapsed like that. There you go. Now, right, there's basically another crease that goes the opposite direction that collapses the exact same, but in order to collapse it, we got to fold through these pleats. So we're going to do it at the same time on both sides, right? So I'm going to start over here, at least with the pleat, and it's kind of like just folding these pleats upward, like this, right? So there's one, and then I'm going to fold again here. Right, that completes that part. Then we'll go again. Up 3 times. There you go. Complete it on both sides like this. Right. And then actually that is about good. So we might have like this area. It's not super happy, but for now, let's just recollapse these side pleats with this flap in place, right? So like this, and then when you get to this part, in order for it to lay flat, you're just gonna kind of have to make an extra crease right along the inside here. So as you can see, when I press it in, right, it kind of makes a crease here, and inside it just kind of looks like that, and that's just to let it lay flat. Just kind of push it in, let it lay flat like this, and then the rest here, this might not quite lay flat yet, and we actually don't really need to press it down, so just leave this part not flat yet, and that'll just avoid an extra crease that we don't need. But let's do the same thing on this other side. Right, so just start to recollapse these pleats here. And then same thing on this side. When we get to the last one next to our flap, you're just going to want to fold a valley fold here, right at the corner, so that it can lay flat like this. All right. Now that we have this, let's actually fold through all the layers our valley fold upwards, like here, right? And if you look at the crease pattern, if you have that on hand, basically we want these side flaps, they're going to lay like that, right? Across like that. But as you can tell, we have all these flaps in the way that are preventing us from doing that, See, like this. And this is why we want to keep this part clean, is because it'll probably show up in the final fold. But we can start this as reference, that it's going to lay flat, and that idea will help us with this next section, which isn't very hard, but it might be a little bit confusing. Right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start on this side with this pleat right here. And you're basically going to do like a reverse fold on this corner. Like that, right? Looks like you're folding the pleat in. Kind of like that. And then let's actually do the same thing on the next flap here. Although this one might change a little bit soon, but we basically have our two flaps like this. And what this is going to help us with is, let's pretend we're collapsing it again. Like here. The goal is actually we're going to be swiveling this point downwards and completing a unit here, but this is going to take a little bit extra work. So it's not quite as simple as it might seem. So let me try to give you guys a good look at what's happening here, and then you might be able to prepare some creases as well. But you can kind of see, right, if we have the raw edge, it's going to look like this. And then in order to get this flap across this side, this first point, I'm actually going to hold it towards that flap. And then this middle point right here is going to swivel down. And then we're going to crease that into place, right? And it's going to form a new crease on the inside of these layers right here, like that. And that's what lets us fold our model flat with this along the side. It kind of swivels it sideways. So I'm going to show it again on this side here, right? So remember, we had our flap originally like this, and it's looking just as these flaps collapsed. And then at the end here, we have it creased here. Then from these two sides, right, these two edges, we're going to reverse fold. Let's try to get it clean. Reverse fold along the pleat. So there's one, right? And then we have another pleat right here. This is just at like a 45-degree angle, right? So a very generic reverse fold like this. And then now, this is the swivel part. We're going to take this long flap, swivel it down, and you can see how it opens up the model a little bit. And that middle corner that's sticking up, you're going to want to push down at the same time as you swivel, and it's what's going to let it lay flat. And if you feel some resistance on the inside, right, you can kind of just adjust the paper, get it out of the way, and it'll either stay folded up like this, or this corner might fold inwards. It doesn't really matter from here, right, as long as it's got this shape, because this shape, when we have both of these together, so it kind of makes the front grille or intake or splitter of our car, kind of like that. And obviously there's some more details that are going to take in place besides this, but here's the start, like this, right? And that is how that part collapses. And a lot of times this part doesn't like to stay down very much, so sometimes what I'll do is I'll grab like a clip, right? And I'll hold it in place like that. Just for like overnight. And it'll make the paper a little bit less bouncy along this area and just get it used to, you know, being like this. And that way I can work on this part a little bit easier. Now I've already done this for this side, so mine's not going to be as bouncy as maybe yours will. So I'll probably remove these just for the tutorial. But just make sure this doesn't unfold too much. And then we'll start on this area. Okay, hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but you should end up like that. All right, and I always forget, there's always one more thing before we move on. So before we move on to this section, we have one more thing to do here, and I'm sure later on there hopefully won't be anything else to do. But on these tabs right here, basically we're going to spread sync the first part of the flap. So you've seen this a lot in my designs, so I shouldn't have to explain too much, but try to be fairly precise with these, as the thinness is going to matter, or at least that we want them to be pretty much even. It'll just make it a little bit nicer in the end, right? So get that spread sync just like that. And not only are we doing it on this side, so I guess once you finish it, then you're going to close it back up. But the other parts as well. So this remaining edge right now is at 45. We're going to spread sync it, and it'll become 22.5. Right. So just like this, pretty simple. But yeah, it's in the crease pattern. Forgot to do it a little earlier, but this works. So we'll spread sync just like that. And voila. So not too difficult. Close it back up. Try to be as precise as you can. Let's flip it back around like that. Right, and then you're going to do the same thing on the other side, which I won't show. I'll just let you guys do that on the other side. But go ahead, get those spread syncs in, and then we'll move to this section. All right, so we are finally on to, I guess, the main body section. And this part is kind of interesting, so pay close attention. But let's start with just these two, and we'll continue on because the start isn't too hard. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this top flap right here and just fold it in half. So fold it to this existing crease line and fold it fairly precisely. It's kind of hard for me to see from this angle, but I'll hold it up a little bit so I can both see and show you guys a little bit. Let's try to fold it perfectly in half. Just like this. And crease it down. And then on this side, you're going to do the same thing, right? You're going to fold it down. I guess for the sake of coherency, I'll fold it this way, since this is going to become the windshield. Alright, so like this. Right, and even on my 50 centimeter paper, it's getting a little bit small. I guess this is a partial 96th division. Right, just like that. And then let's do the rear windshield, right? So then let's skip this for now. We'll do this last. These two right here, we're going to basically do the same thing. So I'm going to valley fold in half here. And then let's flip it around. We'll do this one now. Valley fold. And I'm doing this so that you can kind of see the orientation. I guess it won't matter a whole lot as of now. Oh, I just did the wrong one. Okay, well, whatever. We're going to do this on the middle one as well. But I guess since we're on this side, we can fold both this way to kind of complete our angle. Right, like that. Okay, and then on this very back one, this one's just going to be a slightly different. And the reason for this one, don't valley fold it, right? Not this way. This is going to be our spoiler, and we are going to fold it in half. But we want to fold it down this way. So if it was in this orientation, it will be a mountain fold. So to turn into a valley, to make it a little easier to fold, let's just valley fold it this way a little bit, and then fold in half. And this one be extra careful because this is a finishing detail basically. Just like that. And crease it nice and strong. And treat this as done. Just remember that nothing else is going to happen to this tiny flap back there. There you go. So we have all these folded. And again, in your mind, I just want you to be conscious so you don't make any mistakes that this is the rear windshield, this is the front windshield, and then the one in the middle, it's special. So we're just going to leave it alone for now. But for this process, let's start with the front because the next step is the same for all of these. Alright, so you might have guessed from what we pre-creased that yes, we're going to indeed spread sync these flaps. Now let me show you, because it kind of might sound scary when it's very small like this, but it's not hard at all. Basically, I'm going to take the flap right here, right, and then use my fingernail in between these two layers just to get it started. If I can, there you go. Right. And then gently push on the corner a little bit and allow it to start spread squashing down. Right, I like to do it from both ends so that it's even. But although once I have one, it's easier to start the other. Come on. Alright, and if yours is being stubborn like mine, you might just have to fidget with it a little bit to get it going. But once you get it going, it's pretty easy to squash down, and then you want to be very precise along the edges to square it off, especially for this first one. So we're going to be using it to make our windshield, not our windshield, our mirrors. There we go, just like this. And then from here, just crease back and forth along the middle line that it created. Right, just to reinforce it. And you'll see why we do this later. You want to do it on both sides. And then you're going to repeat this spread sync for the next one, the middle one, and then the back rear windshield. But not the spoiler. So just 1, 2, 3, just 5. Only 5 of them. Got it? So I'm going to fast forward this part because I think it's self-explanatory. Alright, so we have finished the spread syncs, right, as you can kind of see along here. Again, only on these 5, right? And this next part is going to be similar, but it's going to craft out the windshield. So I'll show the front windshield. I guess I might show all of these, right? Okay, so let's go one by one. Let's start with this very first one. And what we're going to be doing is closed syncs. So, or at least just one, right? So here, let's fold this flap up. This is the very first one right here, right? And this is the one we're going to close sync. So to do this, just fold it this way, and then this crease right here will become a mountain fold when we close sync it, right? So I'm going to flip it over, and this one is going to be a mountain. And how I like to close sync it is I just open from the middle and I'm reaching underneath the model, right? And I start poking at that valley fold to turn it into a mountain. And this will make the close sync pretty easy, and I do it all along until I hit the corners. I make sure to do the corners last, because that's the only really tricky spot. And sometimes, if you're careful, you can actually just poke it all the way in with no problem. However, here I have a little bit of imprecision. So then afterwards, I just go inside the model, open it up a little bit, just so that the crease can be nice and sharp. We don't want any imprecision if possible. Right? And then just carefully recollapse the model. Like that. And then we have the other side right here. See, we just have this little pocket. Ideally, we can push it in. There we go. This one worked a lot nicer than the other one. No paper was trapped. And there we have our closed sync. Now from here, we have a little bit of a flap remaining. And what we're going to do is just valley fold this into this new pocket that we created from the closed sync. And this makes a nice seamless border. Like that. And we're going to be using this border a little bit for at least the mirrors on this side. Okay, now we're going to do the next one. And this time it is this one that we are close syncing, right? So let's crease it this way. And then right here is where we are going to mountain fold. So again, open. I like to orientate it this way for myself because I am used to doing it like this. Right, invert the crease here. Get ready for the close sync. And then just push the little corner in for the close sync. Same thing on the other side. Very gently. Just like that. Right? And then now you're going to valley fold this flap inside that little pocket that we created. New pocket. There you go. And you can kind of see the shape that it's starting to make. Let's skip the middle one for now. We'll do the middle last, and we'll work on the rear windshield. So I guess we can start with this one right here, right? So the flap that we will close sync will be the very last half pleat here. We're going to turn that into a mountain. So same kind of process. And as you do more of these, they'll get much easier as you go on. It's really not too bad of a close sync. Right, push the pocket in. This one I might have to fix from the other side a little bit. Same thing here. And that side's good enough, but this side needs some work. Let's see if I can fidget it. If not, no, I need to reach underneath. Right, just to get that crease nice and clean. There we go. It's very satisfying when your clothes things are clean. just like that. And then again, just valley fold the remaining flap inside that new pocket we made. You're gonna hear me say this a lot. And then we have this one right here, which we're gonna turn around. Right, so right here. This time we are close syncing this flap, or that crease will be the mountain fold. And if you need to check which crease to mountain fold, this is all marked on the crease pattern. So if that helps you, go ahead and check that if you can't figure out from the video. I know this blue paper is starting to blend into itself. Right. But hopefully, at least this sequence makes it a lot easier to do than to just try collapsing the crease pattern. That'd be fairly difficult. Right, and then from here, valet fold that flap inside the new pocket. Try to keep it as clean as possible. Just like that. And then now this middle one is left, and this one's special because, right, we do it last, at least just to check, right? We had the front windshield and the back windshield. The middle one's special because we're going to close sync both of these flaps inside, and it's going to basically divide up the body panels on our vehicle. So let's just start one at a time. Start with this one on top. And you'll see what happens when we close sync both of these. It's actually kind of cool. Uh-oh, we got a paper stuck a little bit. You got it? Think so? Right, so that was the first one. And then I folded a little bit imprecisely, so the middle isn't quite even, but now we're going to close sync the other side. And this might be a little bit more difficult to fidget with since you don't have as much free space to work with, but it's nothing too different. Just be patient with your paper and yourself. Get it nice and precise, ideally on the first try. Don't get extra creases. There we go. Oh. And make your model lie flat again. There you go. And actually, even on camera, you can barely tell that the crease is there, right? And so that's kind of the effect, right? It kind of seals off as the top of our vehicle, but as you can see here, you can kind of see it, as well as the lines for our windshields. And now we have a couple more details to do, and especially on this front windshield, to get the mirrors. So let's check that out. All right, so the first step is not going to be very friendly, but pay attention to how I'm holding our model, right? We're gonna work on the mirror on this side of the car, and then I'm going to look at it from the bottom, right? And you see we have a corner right here, and it leads down to this pleat. You're going to basically fold, a valley fold, from the corner to the corner that meets that pleat right there. And it's like almost a bisector. It's not quite a bisector, but it's almost a bisector. You see that? Very small detail. And then crease that well, because we're going to open sync that corner in. And I know it sounds a little bit iffy, but it's just a regular open sync. There's just some other things in the way, so as you open up the paper, try not to undo too much of what you have currently. But this detail is very important, so really try your best to get it precise. And I know there is a lot going on. So just be patient with it, know where your creases are, but it's nothing too hard. Just got to be patient with it. Don't worry, there's only 2 of these. It's this and the other side, and that's the only open syncs like this. Right, so once you have that open sync, right, then you want to very carefully recollapse everything else back to how it was. Right? And I'll show you the point of this before we repeat it on the other side. It's because now, right here, we have a crease line actually right here. I'm not sure if you can see this, but it's basically this whole flap. You're going to valley fold like that. You're going to valley fold along that crease, and it's going to spread out our close syncs a little bit like this. And this is why we did the close syncs, to basically get this structure, right? And then this flap, we're now going to valley fold in half. So valley fold in half, and this will help lock everything in place, kind of. But it's the between layers, right? So try not to undo anything. Like that. Crease down. And there we have the frame of our windshield. And then our mirror right here. And so we're going to do that on the other side, which I'll show again. Just a little bit faster. Right, so we're going to flip it over here, and we're going to make a crease from this point to the corner. Or sorry. From this point right here to the corner. I mean, in theory, you could close sync that one that I pointed out, but it wouldn't do anything. But I don't think you should. It might mess up something. I don't know. Right, so this corner, crease well, and open sync it. And honestly, if you can do this OpenSync, you'll find every other OpenSync in a lot of other models way easy. Like a lot easier than this. Because this is a very fidgety OpenSync. Because there's just a lot of... It's hard to grab, one, because there's a lot of layers going on. And two, it's between a lot of stuff you don't want to mess up. So you just gotta be gentle with it. You know, your general OpenSync techniques. If you're folding this, then I assume you are pretty good at these, actually. There you go. And things like that step is one of the reasons why I think this collapse is reasonably difficult compared to, say, the Samurai. Alright, so we have that. Now we have this flap along this crease line, right? Now valley fold it over. Right, and then fold this flap in half. To lock that structure in. And all that just for some mirrors, right? I know. But there we have this. It's a nice little detail. And now let's do the rear windshield quickly because it's a lot easier. We don't have to do any sinks. It's just that last step where you open up or you do the valley fold along this flap, right? And then fold in half. And I know there'll be that sticky outy thing where, in theory, you could put another mirror, right? But we're not gonna use this. We'll cover that in the shaping tutorial. All right, so this last part right here. Fold in half. And there we have it. That is basically everything on the crease pattern. And if you let it lay flat, right, it's going to look like the crease pattern does. Like that. See, there we go. We have our completed base just like this. Obviously, it's laying flat a little bit more on the crease pattern since it's a computer-generated thing. And actually, I think the mirrors aren't done on the crease pattern. But yeah, you can basically see the concept like so. And from here, that is the end of the collapse tutorial. Next, we'll go over shaping, which, like I said before, is not going to be as long as this collapse tutorial. But is surely going to quite be just a little bit of process to make it look nice. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and folding along if you have been doing so. Great job for making it this far. This is no easy task. So yeah, definitely give yourselves a round of applause and get excited for the shaping tutorial. Now, this sequence for this design was not easy to come up with. So if you guys want, please, please, please support this video. And what I mean by that is just sharing it with your friends. You know, they don't have to fold this model, but just show them, hey, check out this cool tutorial. Can't believe this design actually has a tutorial. You know, get the word out. That would mean a lot to me. Leave a like on this video and drop a comment on what you like about this design, or how you're doing with this design, or maybe if you plan to fold it at some point in the future. But yeah, any of that means a whole lot to me. And if you want to go an extra step, feel free to join the OBB membership. But again, I am very happy to provide this tutorial to y'all, and I hope that I am going to start to see some progress photos from you guys that are folding it. So yeah, definitely follow me on Instagram so you can DM me your progress on this BMW, and I will see you guys in the next tutorial.
All this origami, all this origami, all this origami got me going kamikaze.